here. I think those are the most valuable. Just some of the dialogues that he uses, and the way that he does it, it seems so, it comes out so easy. Hey, I'm going to pound the drum for you, it just the way that he does it. We only all hope to be that comfortable.
Yeah, and his confidence also makes it a lot easier when you're trying to absorb it. He just makes it like, oh my God, I can say that to anybody, and I had a cool thing yesterday. I was over dropping off my power washer at my neighbor / friend's house, and there's a couple guys that came up that were talking about, they were selling CenturyLink or whatever, and I would, I don't live there. I was just talking with him, and she needed to switch from Cox anyways, because in our neighborhood, it's stupid to pay what she does for the internet anyways. So as I was sitting there chatting with them, I said, Jason, let me, since you're so good at this, let me ask you, if you had somebody that was looking to buy or sell real estate, do you have a realtor that you would refer them to? And he's like, no, not at all. No. Had my little vest on, and I was like, well, here you go. Here's one of my cards, and now you do. So it was really good. He's like, that was smooth. And I'm like, I didn't even go into how I knew to say that, but it just came up and it was, natural. It just like rolls off your tongue. It was cool. And that, makes a difference because they'll remember that.
And it was at the right time.
Right.
Like, it's like watching a jump rope.
Yeah.
Do I jump? Is it now? Is it now? No, wait.
It's
now. The other thing besides here's, just here's my card. I'd like to be that guy, or I'd like to be that. I'd like to be that person.
And it's a lot less shameless when it's like that, because instead of being like cheesy, it's cheesy, but it's like you're putting yourself out there and being, I guess, vulnerable to their reception of it. And even if they did reject it, like, I could laugh it off. I don't care, because I got to practice on somebody, this shit that they're telling you to do. And it doesn't matter if they, whatever, reject it. I don't care. So it's fun.
Well, and also you got positive feedback. So that just made it so much, well, I would think, easier for you to do it again. So that was good. Good job.
Yeah, you got somebody that said, hey, that was smooth. Nice job. And you don't always get that, but
and he was like somebody that I could see myself working with, like, he had a cool personality. He was chill, it was just natural. So it was even better. It was very satisfying.
That is good.
Okay, Chris.
I'm sorry, what's the question? What are you asking?
There are two questions, okay? What was one really good tip that they got from, because there's two videos that they watched on sellers, so there's no way we can cover all that. So I want to know what they did get and what the question is that they have from what they watched. So then what's a question that you have and or something you want Tim and I to talk about, or us to talk about as a group. So
I'm realtor failure this week. I'm behind, so I didn't get a chance to the videos this week. So sorry.
Realtor failure.
I know. It's been a week.
Okay. So now I would like you to watch the videos, and I want you to send to Tim and I both answers to both of those questions, because then that helps us to know what you need to, and it helps your mentor as well. So
it's true.
Okay, Missy.
So I kind of, I guess, liked how you walked them through the whole process and sat down with them and kind of explained everything. But I guess my question would be, so these sellers had a very nice house that they didn't need to really make any adjustments to, like, how do you go to somebody's house and tell them that it looks like crap and you should update some stuff?
So your question is, how do you address?
Yeah, I mean, it might be like
it's a crappy house.
my mother-in-law, like when she was around, she just lived super simple. You know, didn't need any bells or whistles or any frill. And then how do you know, tell somebody who's completely
sure.
comfortable with how they're living or what their place looks like that this is not going to sell, or we could sell it faster if it looked better?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Actually, Tim's going to address.
Well, I guess the answer is you refine this is a moment, this is an example of as you as a real estate agent have to learn your words and refine them and always improve. The reality is that what you're describing is virtually any listing appointment you go into, just different variations of it. Yeah, you can go into a listing appointment and the house can be amazing or it can look like crap. And you also have to decide what is actually important and what isn't. So I don't know how to say the answer. I don't know how to sit here and show you how to talk to a client. But first, if you've earned their trust and they like you and trust you, you're gonna be much more open. Second, don't comment on things that just aren't changeable. You know, if there's something in the house that is just without the realm of updating or changing, or you really think it might just be your opinion, just keep your mouth shut, because you're just filling the words and filling the air with words. It's also the advice is different based on the market. You know, a seller's market, a strong seller's market, the house. Sometimes you can find a fixer-upper that you can put on the market as is, and it's going to sell no matter what. And you don't have to really worry about it. So I guess it's really hard to say. I've told you guys in my listing appointments that the thing that I know I do to get my listing appointments is my sellers tell me that I earned their trust. They felt like I really truly liked their home and I was genuinely paying attention. So I guess from my experience, all I can really say is that I take lots of notes. I always say positive things before I say negative things. I filter through the things that they simply aren't or can't change, and go from there. I don't really know if that really helps. So sometimes you might be in a situation where, you know, if they spent $3,000 recarpeting the living room, that they'll get that back, but you know it's just not in their budget, or they just don't have the time, or they don't have the energy. Sometimes you just don't. I'd rather hear somebody else talk about how they would handle this kind of situation. Although I know
I was just gonna say how I have a buyer that I'm working with that once, you know, we find that they want to fix up, you know, a little bit more of their house before we list it. So we're gonna find them a new one. So we've had the beige versus white conversation, you know, and like me personally, I'm a very white, black kind of guy, love that. And he's very beige. So I was trying not to put, and it's everywhere in his house. So I wasn't trying to put my personal opinion above his. So I just showed him houses in his neighborhood, the interior, and had him, you know, have that conversation with himself of like, well, this is what these houses are selling for. There's not a lot of beige ones. So you're either gonna, you know, we'll find that person that loves that beige and brown, or you're gonna find somebody that like me that's like, holy shit, that's, you know, $4,000 of painting or 6 months of my life that, you know, I'm going to do myself, living with beige walls. So he had, you know, kind of that conversation. I was like, okay, I'm more open to that, because you're going to have to touch it up anyways if you want it to look really nice. So I've actually converted him now to the white side, because having a blank canvas is easier. You know, the beige people can get used to white, but I don't know. It just one of those things. And that's how I kind of handled it when I don't personally like their decor in their house. And it speaks, I think, to the market too. But I think they should trust you and earn that trust, but have them have that process themselves with how they want to do with it, what they want to do with the house. So.
There's others in this club. Crap.
One of the things that I've done with my sellers is tell them I'm going to walk through their house as though I'm taking buyers through. And then I'll point out things that I'd be pointing out to my buyers, right? And then we will be able to talk about what I'm pointing out and figure if these are make or break things, or if they need to be fixed or touched up, holes in walls, rotted siding, things of that nature. So that way they're not surprised by anything that a buying agent is going to point out to their buyers. And then it's me positioning myself as a value add to them as well, right? These are structural things, or these are things that I've noticed, or things that I've fixed in the past. And then we can have a quick checklist to go through. And that way you're not really pointing out like your taste is bad or your house is crap. It's more or less, if I'm bringing a buyer through here, these are the things that I'm going to point out to my buyers so we're thinking about this as we're writing an offer, whether it be we're going to lowball you, or we're going to come in under asking, or we're going to write at asking with nothing to fix, right? And those are all scenarios that I try to position to my sellers, so that way they understand what value I'm providing and how another realtor is going to be looking at their home.
One of the things that comes to my mind, Missy, is I think this is part of your question, is how do you not like react like, oh shit, what am I going to do with this? It feels like that's kind of part of your question, and how about your reaction. And I use the words comfortable. Oh, this feels like a comfortable house. Somebody can really make it their own. Giving feedback that will be helpful without being hurtful or harmful. But I think the number one thing is you've got to know your seller's motivation. Like if the motivation is, I want the highest, I want the highest dollar, otherwise I'm not going to sell, or I don't really need to sell. If I get the right offer, that kind of, if I get the right offer, I would sell. If there's no motivation, you have to price it where it is, as is, where it is. If they are really motivated to sell and they understand there's some things they need to do, you could make here's a list. We always make a list for people, and these are the negotiable things and the non-negotiable kinds of things to do based on whatever their budget is going to be and how much difference it's going to make in the sale price of the house and where the market is for that period of time. Sometimes you just have to be helpful in bringing somebody else in. We work with a couple of different people who work with people who are downsizing, and maybe they're older and going into not assisted living, but what's the other one? A retirement home or something, where they need to just get rid of stuff. We'll suggest that we have this person come in and help them with, getting rid of, not just getting rid of things, but here's things that they're going to keep. That person will do a not a yard sale, but an estate or yard sale, either one of those for them. So sometimes it's an assistance thing that you offer. And sometimes people are like, I just want the house sold. I don't really, I don't want to do anything. Just want the house sold. And my best advice is to just follow them through the house as you're taking a look, and just take notes, and then put it all together at the end, and just say, how much work, know their motivation and what they are willing and able to do, offer assistance, and because not every house is going to turn into the house that looks like it's just been flipped. In fact, very, very few do, unless you start from, ripping everything out and starting over. So I don't know how better to say that, but just the same thing, like, your mother-in-law, like she lived simply. One of the greatest things about houses of people who live simply is there's usually a big amount of effort to make sure that their roofs are always good and their HVACs are good. So the bones of the house, and you can comment on that too, unless the house is like really shot. So that would be my feedback, is really important to have the motivation and what their next plan is. Allie, you've done a lot. Allie, you're just going to stand up. You've done a lot. Do you need to do something?
Give me like 2 seconds. I'll be
Okay.
right back. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Anybody else has had that, the listing walkthrough, oh my, kind of feeling, wondering what to do with that? Okay, now let's go on to the next. John, what'd you get? Like, what was one good tip? You've been around for a while, you've done a few things, but I always get something from watching his videos. So what did you get? And then what question do you have? You're muted, John. But you're very animated.
Read my lips.
Yeah. And your hand.
No, there you go. Well, I think a good tip is, asking your sellers, what are the features in their home that they're,
Mhm.
they've most embraced over the years. And, on this other topic, I think too, when I walk a home, to me, it's one of, letting them give the tour, just ask the questions and listen. And then at the end, it's really, again, to your point, the motivation is huge, just really understanding how motivated are they? Because that'll determine some of the dialogue. And if there is, sincere motivation, it's one of, okay, with that motivation, we now have to look at the emotional aspect of the home and removing that emotional side of the home that basically has been a part of you and a part of your life. In that now we transition it to where after the tour, pointing out the things that we need to do in order to, set the stage for the home to go to market.
What's the toughest one you've ever had?
I think a lot of it is the personal aspect of it in terms of, how their furnishings are laid out, how, if there's a lot of clutter, if there's, circumstances where, pictures, personal things that just need to be removed. Sometimes it's hard for them to, to wrap their head around it. But then realizing at the end of the day, the most important thing from a buyer's perspective is they need to see the space. They need to see the full functionality of the home in terms of, limited furnishings, limited art, to be able to really determine, is this space compatible with the needs of that buyer? And as best you can stage that as a presentation to a buyer, that's where you're a step ahead of it. And then also, it does take a little time for some of these sellers to remove that emotion, from it. Well, I think this, and I think it looks great there. Well, frankly, let's try it over here, or let's remove it.
Yeah.
So.
And what question did you come out of that with? About anything?
Geez. I think back to, what Brent had said too, it's sometimes, the challenge of setting your commission can be a little, some people just think, well, since I know you, maybe give me a percent off
Right.
type of thing. And it's like, yeah.
Everybody knows me.
I know. So, that's one I think that is a question that, in an exercise that we should focus on sometimes, because I think that
We're going to talk about that, John.
Yeah.
As soon as we're finished going around here, because I've already
Yeah.
written that down, that's an important conversation, and we're going to have it. But I want to get through all the rest of you guys
Sure.
first, and then we will have a conversation. And I've got a few things. I know Tim has a few things to say that may be helpful to you.
Right.
So, but we're never going to stop talking about
Mm-hmm.
how to, how to even approach that conversation.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah. Shelby, why don't you go ahead? Because wasn't it you that, no, it's Shannon said you have to leave early. So, yeah. Okay.
Do you want
Shelby.
Shannon to go?
Yeah, Shannon's got questions about an emotional seller buyer.
No, we were supposed to close at 9:00, but sellers are they don't want to leave their house. They're emotionally attached. So.
And you have the
I'm like,
buyer?
Yeah. Mhm. So we pushed it back to 12:30. So we had to do another walkthrough at 12 to make sure they're actually out of the house.
Yeah.
So yeah, but okay, so my statement, and I know I've heard this before, but it just kind of like shocks me every time, is that 19% of the agents have 76% of the listings. So I just think that is, I mean, I know that's industry standard, but I'm just like, what is it in Omaha? Kind of, has anybody, is that pretty much on board with the Omaha market?
I've never heard an exact number. I'd love to figure that out, but it does.
Yeah, so I was just kind of like had a question. I'm like, I kind
Well,
of
it's
want.
the 80-20 rule, but from Brian Buffini last year in his State of the Market thing, Tim, I don't know if you remember this.
Very much.
He said it's now 85-15. So
And that goes for 15% of the realtors are doing 85% of the business. Is that right?
The business.
yes, 15% of the realtors are doing 80. Now here is another thing that you've got to remember is some people, when they have a team, and they could have a team of 20 people, all of their team's production goes towards their production. So you
Those
could
numbers are
have,
kind of skewed.
they're very skewed.
Yeah.
And there are, that is actually one of the pieces of that some people negotiate when they get on a team, is that they want their own production
Recognition. Yeah, they want to be
recognition.
Yeah.
And they want it separate from the team's recognition. So though they could be skewed, but I will tell you that the is it 9% of all homes sold in the US. This is the statistic. It's either 9 or 8. 9% of all the homes sold and recorded by the National Association of Realtors are sold by members of Buffini and Company Coaching.
Yeah, it's big.
It's 8 or 9%.
Yeah.
Nationally.
It's big.
Which is a huge number, which says you got a lot of chances if you have people that are in coaching that stay in the business. So yeah, 19%. So if you want to be part of that 19%, you have to get good at, I don't think you necessarily have to get good at listing homes. You have to get good at building a database of referrals. And then you get good at listing homes. So that it's kind of a, Tim, do you agree with me what I'm saying here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Yeah.
All day long. Yeah.
It is not about how many people you can find who will let you list their home and then you hit it and run. It's about building the database of people who refer you and who trust you. And what Tim said, trust, he establishes trust, likes the home, and he pays attention to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Those are if you guys aren't writing that down,
The
That's something
sellers
you
just
need to write
want to
down.
be heard. And when you're on an appointment, they're telling you everything. Your pen and paper should be frantically writing things down to the adjectives they use to describe the house and the words and the neighborhood, the way they talk about the neighbors, the way they talk about the park and the school, everything. It needs to be in writing because they're telling you the things that are the most important to them. And if you're properly listening, when you write the remarks, they're going to be like, oh my God, they listened to me. It's critical.
they're giving you your seller your remarks for your listing. Do you know that when you're sitting talking to them?
You just ask them questions and write down those words and pay very special attention to the adjectives they use. Those are your marketing words. So.
And I'll go back to the same thing I've said a zillion times. In fact, I think this should be put on my grave. Well, I'm not going to have a grave, but I think somebody should say this when I die and they throw my ashes out, is that you have to be a good question asker. Like I'd love that to be my thing was she was a good question asker. The more questions you ask, the more they think you care. They know you care. And the more information they will give you. This is not a secret thing. And a lot of agents make it like it is. Like everything's a secret. It's not a secret. You're selling a home. you need to know everything that they want you to know about the house, but you have to ask them. They don't even know what they know until
I
you.
don't know if you've ever heard those stories about Brian said one as an example about one time he was at a meeting and met somebody and started talking to her and asked a few questions, and they talked for like 45 minutes, but really she talked the whole time. He never said a word. And later the woman was talking to Brian's wife and said, "My God, your husband is such a great conversationalist." He never spoke. She just spoke. But he, he asked the right questions. He paid attention. And it's just like that on a listing appointment. Is you want them to think that you just left there. I mean, they're in charge. You just want them to know how much you like their home and them, and be sincere.
You can walk into a dining room and see their table in the dining room and know, that they've had like amazing amount of memories in that dining room, depending upon what that looks like. Now, mine is my desk right now, because all my bedrooms are upstairs or down, my office. So, but people can tell you, you can feel the stories, oh, here's where you raised your kids, or, or do you guys look like you entertain a lot, depending their backyards, like it looks like you entertain a lot. When we're looking for your next house, tell us about, we'll talk about that, like the things that you want in your next house. And so, and that was your question, but was there an aha for you, Shannon?
Well, it's kind of like my statement, that thing is like, that always kind of just blows my mind of like, there's so much business out there, but only a little bit are going and getting it, are like motivated to go get it.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is like, I love how he said, you want them to have a comfortable experience, not a perfect experience. And I think like we are just like set, like we're supposed to be like on top of everything. Everything has to be perfect. If something falls, it's, it's our fault, we didn't do something right. So I know I've had to do this a couple of times and I hate doing it, but when is that point like where you fire a seller, like you terminate that contract because they're not, complying and they're not working with you and meeting the expectations that you've set forth?
It's the day that you free yourself in your business. The first time you ever fire a client, it is the day that you become a different realtor. But Tim, when's that day?
Well, I guess the answer to your question, Shannon, is there's no distinct answer we can say right here. I think it's a gut. It is it's a feeling of we can't work together anymore for whatever reason. Sometimes it's simple. Like if there's a major item that needs to be disclosed and they won't disclose, well, that's just easy. Usually it's that the person's just a creep and you're just really, 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 really having a hard time. But your tolerance levels might be different than mine. You know what I mean? So it's not really all that easy. But I would say once you feel like you're compromising your values, or you feel like you're flat out just doing it for the money and nothing else, then you might want to start, considering canceling that relationship. By the way, you can unilaterally cancel a listing if you need to. If it's a situation where you are not getting along, actually my buyer's agent, Allison, she's on my team. She had to cancel a listing a few days ago. I'm not going to air her dirty laundry, but the seller was just extraordinarily difficult and would not listen, would not do anything she asked. And at a certain point, she just said, "I'm sorry, I just can't do this anymore." And she did it very politely. He was frustrated, but to Carol's point, once you do it for the very first time, you feel amazing. You feel like,
you do. I remember going to get my sign out of the yard. I was like, hell yeah.
There's
like,
two things that I look for. Number one, you had an idea or a hint at the very beginning. Something tapped on your shoulder and said, there's something that it is not going to be easy. It's not going to be good. And you talked yourself out of that. That's number one. Number two, when I'm going to sleep and waking up thinking about that person or that listing, that's my sign. I can't do this anymore. And it's not that, we're not gonna argue about that you have a contract with me for 6 months and you have to stick to it, or you have to pay. I don't want your money. I don't,
Yeah.
nothing. I'll be happy to refer you off. All those kinds of, they don't want to even talk to you by then, but yeah, when I'm going to sleep and waking up thinking about them, I'm done. And I
My
should,
little
I
test
should,
was if I were losing sleep over a sale, I've got to cancel it.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's so good. I think we get so like, we were kind of almost like, oh, we want it all, right? But it's like, it's not worth your peace. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your energy. And I remember from that transaction, my mentor at the time was like, hey, listen, you only need one red flag. Don't get in the habit of collecting all these red flags. Like if there's a red flag there, run as fast as you can.
That is
So,
great advice. You only need
Mhm.
one red flag. I love that. Actually, I've never heard those words put together, but I would repeat that. And
yeah.
that is, you only need one, and God let us learn that.
I now translate that to my teenage kids and my older adult kids as they're getting in the dating world. I'm like, hey, listen, you only need one red flag. If he shows it to you, run, girl, run.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really good advice. And Brent says, don't collect red flags.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not one of our collections.
Don't,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, awesome. All
That's
right.
great.
Well, I gotta go make
Thank
sure
you.
my sellers are out of their
Bye.
house so my buyers can move in a few hours. You guys have an
Yeah.
amazing day. All
Bye.
right, bye.
Shelby, one tip that you got that was really good and one question.
Yeah, I think what was really helpful was when he just walked through the listing appointment, doing the tour, setting the price, and then laying out how you're going to market their property, even though that's like super simple, just somebody explaining how they go about doing it. I'm a very technical person, so I felt like that was really helpful for me.
Okay.
Other than
To
that, I did
actually
have
see it. To
yeah,
actually visually
right.
see
I'm
it.
a
So if you-
visual, yeah.
Have you done that with, isn't Emily Ware your mentor?
She is. I have not followed her on a listing yet. I've done like a buyer meeting, but not listing. So I haven't seen that yet. I do have a land listing, but that was a very different situation.
Oh, absolutely. But I
It
would
wasn't a
suggest that
property.
all
Yeah.
of you, if you can, shadow your mentor on a buyer appointment and a listing appointment, at least one, or ask, generally ask other agents.
Right.
I know there's lots of agents that'll let you do that. So. it's
Right. We have
helpful.
one scheduled next Monday, so hopefully I'll be able to
Good.
see that. Yeah. Other than that, I guess the question I had was if there is like, I know I use Canva, but something to put together like a listing presentation. When I do go about doing that, I know some people use PowerPoints, but I didn't know if there was like a good resource to utilize to do that.
I would say there's a couple of things. Number one, we're learn Moxie because it has incredible abilities from what I've seen so far. If you want to create a listing presentation that really has a lot of Moxie to it.
Right.
The other thing is RPR for just something that looks impressive, only you can make it short or long. Any of you guys use RPR to do so they come up with this is where we think the range is of the house. And last year it was actually fairly accurate. I don't really use it a lot, but I've sent it to clients before after I've met with them. Cause like I said before, I don't do a big listing presentation. But I would say that looking into RPR and the abilities that RPR has, Brent Wax said Moxie has 9 templates already made, totally worth learning Moxie. Okay, great. So I would learn Moxie. In the meantime, check out RPR and have your mentor show you how to do a CMA on, well, we're going to learn about CMAs today. at
Okay.
Agents Mentoring Agents, right following this, how to do a CMA. But at least have that ability and then start adding on to it. But if I were a brand new agent, I'd be learning Moxie like crazy.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Okay. Allie, sorry I interrupted you when you had to go do something.
It's okay. Good
Yeah.
old mom duties, right?
Yeah. One thing you learned, one thing that a tip that you picked up, you've been doing this for a couple years. One tip that you picked up, and then a question that you have or something you need us to address.
The tip that I learned that I'm definitely going to keep in my back pocket and implement is the pre-listing questions. I typically find myself walking awkwardly through this house with my notebook, and I'm trying to take notes, and I'm asking the questions that I should already know before even getting to the house.
Okay, good.
You know, what's their motivation? What's their timeline? And so really seeing the pre-listing questions written down, it was kind of like an aha to me that before I go to the house and do the tour and write down their own description of their home, I should already know these things.
You should also know where they think their price range is too, if you're going to be bringing anything that has to do with having that conversation. It depends on whether you're a one-time listing person or two. You know, do you do two visits, one? There's all kinds of different styles of doing that. So.
Mhm. And then my question really just kind of like the group here falls back onto commission and pricing. Last year at Thanksgiving, so it's been a whole year, I got cornered by family of, oh, hey, just curious, what's the lowest somebody could ever list a house for? And me, knowing that neither one of them are moving anytime soon, answered it very honestly. They both sold their house with me this year for the discounted price. So,
oh God.
yay. So really, I guess just navigating that conversation, I catch myself being very, very, very honest in almost every single conversation I have. And so it's hard for me to say, oh, you know, most people list at 6 and the lowest I could do is 5.5, because from someone who doesn't have many listings, I could go lower than that to get a sale, but I also don't want to devalue myself or the industry.
Okay.
So the commission conversation.
Okay, discount brokerage conversation is what you're actually asking about.
Yes.
Sarah.
One of the things that stood out to me in his videos and then in the little textbook on page 109 is when I've done a CMA, I haven't done very many, but I didn't think about looking at expireds. I kind of really just focused it all on active and kind of like sold, and had followed that one that, you know, Kristen had. So I'm excited that she's going to be joining us this next hour. So I think learning about that and doing a better search in the MLS for expired stood out to me.
Okay.
And including that. And then I guess sometimes I get into I would describe it weeds, but like even to like when he talked about those pre-listing questions about, you know, asking how much they owe on the property. And then he said, make sure you have the seller net sheet. So I don't know if anyone else has a favorite seller net sheet. I think this is the one I found on .loop from the Omaha Area Board of Realtors. But then I guess some of it I didn't see like in the video, like where he would present this. Do you put this in your listing packet?
You can. Everybody does it. Everybody is different, is what I meant to say. It is only required once you officially list the home. But
Okay.
if you give them that in advance, it's awesome. That's
Okay.
great. What I do is when I send a follow-up email after the appointment with the comparable sales and with kind of my breakdown, and also a summary of everything I talked about. Of my listing appointment, my marketing, what I'm going to do for them. And then I also break down the price, and in my email, I type out what their net would be. So
Okay.
I do that in my email because I can do it off the cuff. My doc stamps, you know, there's only like 8 things. So that's just how I do it. But I think it's smart to do that in advance.
So
And by the way, expired.
answer your, I'm sorry. I thought you-
Expireds. I mean, you are totally right. Yeah, you're not going to judge your ultimate listing price on the expireds, but you want to know. I remember Floyd Wickman, which was the trainer that I followed before I knew Brian Buffini. He would talk about bringing the expireds, and he would print them off. And well, this is before .loop. And he would say, you don't want to be one of these. This is what you don't want to be. And he would use that as a tool to get them to make sure their price was right.
Yeah.
So
For us, and this is what we've used for years, it's Brad Dombrowski at First National Bank created the first interactive one that had any value to us. And so we use that. We use Brad's.
I have that. Yeah.
You have that? Yeah, that we've just continued to use that. And then we also use the one that's up on .loop.
Yeah.
Okay. But what we do is we usually do 3 or 4 different ones. What I do almost the same exact thing as Tim, do the follow-up. Actually, Laura does the follow-up. With the follow-up also has the suggested repairs that we need to send somebody out for. If we've suggested, like, okay, we have electrician, we'll send them out for this. We have a this, we have a that. Do you want us to send those names? We send them a summary of all of that, and we make phone calls for them. But we tell them exactly everything we talked about. Same thing as Tim, only if we send, and we don't always do this the same as Tim, is if we do a cost sheet, we send 2 or 3 of them, like 2 or 3 different price ranges. Like if we sold it for this and this. I want to make sure we have enough time. We have 10 minutes left, and I know there's 3 of you we haven't gotten to. So if you guys have some burning question let's get to that. But I want to make sure we have this quickly, and we'll go back to this again and again. Commission conversation, how to have the commission conversation. So Jacob, do you have a burning question?
No, I don't have a burning question. I think everybody has covered a lot of what I was thinking. My biggest aha moment was his price reduction conversation. I think that's our biggest fear as agents.
Yeah.
But listening to how he navigated that really kind of helped me feel confident if and when I get to the point of having to have that discussion. And then the pre-listing questions, right? Getting that tackled before you even enter the house. That was really great.
Yeah. You guys are spot freaking on with the exact things that I felt were things worth our conversation. And I would tell you, watch it again and again if you can before you lose access to all those videos. Colleen, what do you think? Hi, Kristen just joined us. Kristen, we're finishing our 100 Days to Greatness. If you want to just sit in on it. Colleen, any burning question?
No, I was with everybody else with the commission.
Yeah, okay.
Had that issue before. And then, I was with Missy, walk them through the process, show them how you would earn that commission. Like, that's a big thing for me.
Okay.
Not that I've had many listings, but.
Okay, good.
I have a good story to share with you guys about commissions. So when it comes to commissions, it's very common for people to ask if you're going to be willing to negotiate. I mean, if anything, I respect that they ask. I will say I learned my knee-jerk reaction to it a long time ago, and that was when they ask me if I can discount my commission, or when they say, can you do it for 5, or whatever their words are. I usually say, yes, we can have that conversation. I don't say yes to the reduction of the commission. I say, yes, we can have that conversation. And for some reason, that really works for me. And then I just go into how the commissions work. I talk briefly about who gets paid, how they get paid. I use round numbers. I talk about, you want me to drop from 6 to 5. If I do that, I'm basically giving away 33% of my income. And I explain how I just can't do a business on that. I also, like you've heard before, will say something along the lines of, also, you've hired me for my negotiating skills. And if right here at this moment, I'm showing you that I can't negotiate for myself, how in the world am I going to be negotiating for you when I'm negotiating your sale? So, I've found things that just roll off my tongue that help me with that. And you guys will do the same. I will say briefly, I had a situation earlier this year where I had somebody called me to do a listing appointment. I had to go multiple times, yada, yada, yada. And finally they called me and they said it was going to be at the time we were talking about $550,000 listing. And they asked me if I would do it for 5. And so I had the conversation and I went to them, I had the appointment, and I explained to them, I never said no. I just never said yes. And so I explained to them my entire marketing strategy and how I would market their home and blah, 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 blah. And then I went home, and about an hour later, they called me back and they said they were going with me and that they wanted me to do 6% because I had shown that I was worth it. And so I never even really had to answer the question. I just was able to deflect, talk about my marketing. They were so impressed that by the time we went back to the commission, they're like, oh, we can't have them go low now. And so, yeah, so this is an eternal struggle as a real estate broker, agent. And as you become more and more experienced and the market gets tougher, you're going to get asked more and more. So you just have to learn what those words are, words that work, and then let them roll off your tongue with confidence. And don't be afraid to pass on a listing because they won't list it with you for anything less than 5, and you just won't do it, whatever. Okay, I'll stop.
So back to being a question asker, Kristen, hang on one second, and then I'll let you jump in because I want your take on this too. So number 1, write this down. Number 1 thing you have got to be very clear about. You could say this even if you're drugged, is what your value proposition is. What is your value proposition? And that's just what Tim was speaking to, is that he tells them all the things that he's going to do. We lead when, and I'm speaking for myself and my partner, but I usually have in the one that has this conversation early on. I usually lead with what we're going to do for them, what we're willing to put on the table before we ask them to put anything on the table. We do pre-inspections, we pay for it. We hire a person to come over and take a look at their house. If they want to hire them to do staging, it's a pre-staging. They will do just basic kinds of moving things around, giving them a report. We hire that person, we pay for that. It's $100 to have somebody, 100 to 125, have somebody come over. We pay for professional pictures, and we do all of that before they have to pay us. And we put that out there first. We also talk about our marketing plan, all the kinds of things that Tim was just talking about. But we put our value proposition out there. I've gotten the same question, will you reduce, are you willing to negotiate? And I remind them, we do 100% business by referral. So I just remind them about the reason why they were even referred to us by that particular person. I keep that person's name coming up through the conversation, is because of our negotiating skills. And the same exact dialogue, because I learned this from Brian Buffini, what Tim just said. If I'm willing to give up, explain to them how people get paid. If I'm willing to give up 20% of my compensation, and I call it compensation, not commission. So change those words. Not commission, it's compensation. Right now, how will I be with negotiating on your home? So I think absolutely you've got to know that you're not going to make it or break it in this business by whether you reduce your commission or don't reduce your commission. You're going to make it or break it by what the value is that you offer to your clients. And that value proposition, I want you guys to start working on it, and we'll talk about it in another week. But what is your value? What makes you different? So I've got 1,000 things to say, but that's the one thing I wanted to say. Kristen, let me add one more thing. So early on, any of you guys know Kelly Micheluna, she's an agent with our company, and she was majorly fired up about Brian Buffini. When I first moved here from California in 2007, I brought the Buffini systems. I taught the systems, and nobody was in Buffini then. And so Kelly was totally fired up by everything. And she asked me to go on a listing appointment with her. And I did. And she was scared to death about the commission conversation. And she had gone through the classes, and Brian used to teach these dialogues. And one of them was for when somebody asks you, will you reduce your commission, or will you match this other person's commission? And so we went through the house, we did the whole thing. I did all the little things. We sat down at the dining table, and they said, well, I said, you know, are you looking at, have you met with any other agents? Well, yeah, they met with an agent from XYZ company. And their commission was only going to be was only going to be 4%. That's what it was. It was only going to be 4. They were going to do this for 4%. And I paused for a second, let it be completely quiet. And then I just said, because he told me what the company was. And I said, and they should. And I went back to, here's the value that we bring to you. And value propositioned our commission. It was Kelly's commission at the time. Kelly's mouth fell open. And when we walked outside, she was just like, oh my God, is that how you, and she learned how to do it like right there. So that's why I'm saying the most important thing is for you to go with somebody else who can show you, not tell you, but show you an actual presentation and fight commission. Like do that, actually show you how to do that. And you just go on. Like this is, you don't go into your doctor and you need, heart surgery and you say, can you reduce your price? Like, because the guy down the street will do it for half price, and they should, because they've killed 50,000 patients. So that's kind of where we want to go with this. Colleen, you're laughing. Kristen, go ahead. You're on the air, and then we'll take a break.
Yep. Hi, everybody. The only thing I was going to add, when people push and push and you find out if you find out who the other broker is, the other thing you can say, check for hidden fees. Check your broker, the BAC fee, your broker fee. Mine is only $350. I don't upcharge you on the fees to recompensate any of that money because I'm only charging you 4%. There are a lot of agents out there that will do that. So just if you choose to go that route, that's entirely your choice, but please make sure you know what you're paying and why, because broker fees are usually only maybe up to $450. I haven't seen very many higher than that, but if you're paying thousands of dollars for a broker fee, that is how that agent is recouping their money. I tell them flat out like that.
One additional thing, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break, Kristen, and then we'll come back and start. One additional thing is when I'm on the phone with somebody, I usually ask all those pre-listing questions and we have that conversation. So I know before we even go to their house. But one thing that, often will come up is, what is your commission? And I answer that with a question. My question back to them is, is that something that is a priority in your decision making? I have never, ever had anybody say, absolutely, it is. Usually what people will say is, no, that's not the only, that's not the, and I say, no, that's great. I'm making a note right now that we'll have that conversation. And
I thought it was, that made me lose my train of thought. Sorry. I was gonna say something about something.
You can grab it again. It's okay. Kristen said that she uses that same line, but that is the line. Like, answer it with a question. When you don't want to be nailed against the wall, Allie, answer it with another question. Is that something that's a priority in how you make a decision about really the biggest transaction you'll ever have in your life? So yeah, we'll talk about that.
I do remember that what I was going to say was when you did your little dramatic pause, I thought you were going to say, they said they'd do it for 4%, and then you just let it sit there, and then you say, okay, well, you didn't say what else they were going to offer you, for value. It was just 4%. That was it. well, we, already showed you what we were going to, do and talk about for your property. So they can do it for 4%. I'm not going to do it for that because I have all these other things that I'm going to get, do for you and whatever. So
for me, what works is I don't even go against them. I don't want to tit for tat. I don't want to compare anything. And they should covers it for me. And they should. They're not going to say, oh my God, like I left it out there. You think about why I think they should charge that. Like, tell me the difference between going to, I don't eat beef, but if I did, like the best burger place and McDonald's. Like, oh my God, their burgers are $10. Well, I can get one at McDonald's for $1.50, and they should. And you should be able to get it for $1.50. Whatever that comparison is. I didn't say anything about McDonald's. I just said that's what you should pay for that. So that makes me look like I know what I'm talking about. And that may have been a great agent. But I wasn't competing with them. I was competing with what their needs were. So, okay, we're gonna take 5 minutes. So it's 5 after, we're coming back at 10 after. And have all of your questions for, Kristen's gonna talk about CMAs and she's fantastic at it. So if you have any questions about it, she'll be back with answers. So, okay, see you guys in 5.
Are you going to stop recording?